So that's the REFRAME model. So it's results, elements, focus, reputation, analogy, mastery, and execution. Hi, and welcome to Helping You Perform. I'm your host, Paul Teasdale. Over a career working with high-performing teams from across the globe, including 7 years working with Formula One team McLaren, I've learned a lot about what it takes to drive results. In this weekly podcast series, I'm going to be bringing you tips, tricks, and insights from the world of Formula One that you can apply for your organisation for your own high performance. Enjoy. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Helping You Perform, where I'm bringing my tips, tricks and insights from the world of Formula One and helping you to apply them to accelerate your own performance. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode, which was episode number 22 on the debrief and the importance of a debrief process and how to have a successful debrief. Today, I want to take a slightly different approach, and I want to be thinking about different perspectives and how to reframe your thinking for performance. Now, this has come about, I've had a couple of conversations over the last couple of weeks about some of my experiences and some of those colliding perspectives that I've had that have added value in my career. And I pick on two stories that I'll call How Sausages Change Banking and When You Want to Change Tyres, Bring in the Ballerinas. Now, what do these two things have in common? They have in common the element of bringing different perspectives to an already performing team to help them perform at an even higher level. Now, if I start with sausages and banking, this was my career a few years ago, where I had a background in food manufacturing. I used to be a production manager in a sausage factory. I moved over to New Zealand. I was working for a big dairy organisation over there, made redundant, and was looking for a new job. And I ended up working for a bank out there. Now, I've got no experience with banking, and so I had to bring a different level of value in order to add value to that team. I wasn't going to bring the deep knowledge of how the banking system worked. What I could bring was, how do you bring a different perspective, such as if I was making loans, if I was doing credit cards, as if I was making sausages, how would I approach that? And how would I measure and manage it in such a way that helps you think about things differently? And so I helped them to understand how to change their measurement systems, their remuneration processes, so that it rewarded people for what you're actually asking them to do and gave a fair reward for all the different products that were there. So you could take a manufacturing viewpoint and apply it to the world of banking, because in essence, they are a very similar operation if you stand back far enough and reframe your thinking. Now, I came across a very similar story to this in my time at McLaren in the world of Formula One, where the story goes that the pit stop crew, who are already, as you can imagine, ultra high performing as a team, doing the pit stop in just a couple of seconds or so, and they wanted to see if they could up their performance even more and get their performance more consistent as well as quicker. And what the team did was actually think, if I was to stand back and reframe my thinking about what I'm trying to do here, what would that be, and who else is doing this stuff really well? And the analogy that they came up with was, well, this is a bit like a dance. It's a bit like a dance troupe. Our whole team is moving together. They've got to be moving swiftly but gracefully. They've got to be reacting to each other as the movement happens, so that everybody does their role in such a way that the team performance gets put into practice. And so what they did is they contacted the Royal Ballet, I believe, to bring them in to get their perspective on how do they go about improving their movement, improving their grace, their team structure, how do they go about their training processes, all the sorts of things that you can learn about how that organization has mastered what they do. And then what you do, you don't just copy everything, you adapt and then adopt. So I've been given this a lot of thought recently about how do we take this and help you to move forward with it. You know, how can you take that approach and have a framework for taking that approach that allows you, in whatever context your performance might be at the moment, how can you think about reframing things? And so if anybody of you who knows me already knows that I love a good acronym, I couldn't help but go for the acronym REFRAME at this side. So this is the model that I'm working on right now. And if anybody wants any further discussions on this, I'd love to hear your thoughts and input. The first level of the REFRAME model is about results. It's going back to that same piece as we do in the rapid performance model. Results are the key starting point. What are you trying to drive? What's the result that you're trying to look for? The first E is about elements. What are the elements associated with that result? What are the things that make it successful or not? So in the example of the pit stop, for instance, the result we're trying to drive is a quick pit stop. The elements of that are the team moving together, the team being graceful, in sync, having smooth movements, known movements, moving in a way that allows the whole team to perform as one. So you can start to break that down into the elements of performance. Then you've got to focus. There's often lots of different elements there. So what are the focus areas that you think, if I really drill these down, if I can get these elements smooth and operating and high performance, then the whole performance of my organization, my team, will be uplifted. So what are the focus elements that you're looking for there? You then look for who's got the reputation out there. That's the R. Who, as an organization, as an individual, as a team, have the reputation for excellence in that field. And that's where breaking down those elements to graceful movement and synchronization, choreography, start to go, right, well, who's got the reputation? Well, the Royal Ballet, they've got a huge reputation for that sort of thing. So you can seek out their advice. But you've also got to sell it internally as well. So you've got to think about the analogy. So the A is for analogy. What's the analogy, the story that you can tell about the connection between bringing this external team in and application to your particular situation? Then you've got the M for mastery, and that's understanding how has that organization with the reputation, how have they mastered what they've done? What are the practices they've put in place? What's the approach they've taken to mastering those elements that are really valuable to you? And then the final one is execution. How do you adapt what has been done by a really successful organization and adopt it to your organization? So you can't just copy and paste. You've got to adapt it to something that will work for your team and then adopt it as something that is standard practice within your organization. So that's the REFRAME model. So it's results, elements, focus, reputation, analogy, mastery, and execution. So I'd love for you to think about that for yourself. Maybe you've got a high performing team at the moment and you're already thinking about what's the next step? How do we take it to the next level? Maybe you're thinking about, actually, my team's been cut to the bone and I've got nowhere to go with any efficiencies. I've got nowhere else left that I can do here. How can I reframe my thinking to bring in some external influence and some external thinking that might sort of change the way in which I look at this whole piece? So go off and have a think about that for yourself. How can you reframe your thinking to up the performance that you're trying to drive? And as always, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this model, on the approach that I'm taking here, on some of the lessons that have been taken from the world of Formula One, but also other high-performing teams. And how can I help be of value to you? So go to that website, go to paulteasdale.co.uk and click on the first box that comes up, or the pop-up box, which is set up 30 minutes, have a chat. It's no pressure. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to understand what value can I add to you, your team, and your organization. I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Helping You Perform podcast. If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to like, share, or review the podcast. You can reach out to me at any time, either through LinkedIn or through my website at www.paulteasdale.co.uk. I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.